What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man, Ant Walker, here with another edition of Unleash, the weekly panel discussion show. And, of course, we've got a great panel, as always, and we're going to introduce a guy who doesn't really need much of an introduction. You've seen him plenty of times on this channel. I've been on his channel plenty of times, so you know the deal. This is Matt Hunter of Mixed Combat Radio. Matt, how you doing today?
Oh, it's great to be back on. You know how much I love to be on with you guys. Always find it really entertaining, obviously, just to be with you. And plus, like, this is my real MMA outlet, to be honest. Like, in terms of like me personally, like how I can really discuss MMA stuff, it's with you guys. So whenever I come on here, I feel like a fan again. It's awesome.
So what's up? Oh yeah. So all your MMA takes you just kept in the holster.
Yeah.
You've been doing a lot of boxing and more political content lately. You've been out there riling up the masses. I see you. I see what you're doing. All right. So of course we've got the jack of all trades who has mastered them all, the senior editor of Sherdog.com, my man Ben Duffy. Ben, what's going on?
Hey, I'm doing real well. I appreciate you clarifying that this is Matt Hunter appearing on the show, because with the beard, for a sec, I thought you got like some Israeli Kenny Florian lookalike. Like, goddamn.
Israeli. Okay.
The like, racially ambiguous Matt Hunter.
Kenny Florian is
never know what I am.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, and if we'll have to link whatever show this was that we did. Like, there was on air moment where I found out that Matt wasn't Hispanic, and I was like so floored. I found out he was a white dude. I didn't know how to react. But anyway,
that
now
just
of course,
looking at his car that you assumed.
So, of course, the panel every week is anchored by the man with the stats, the facts, the figures, and the numbers. He is the associate editor of Sherdog.com, my man, Jay Petru. Jay, what's going on?
You know, the numbers have been a little fluid this week. It's been an odd week for all of us. There was some event that happened on Saturday night that threw everything in it threw everything in the garbage. And Matt Hunter, I'm sure, is going to talk to us more about that, whatever happened. But I want to point out something real quick, which is my stat of the week, that's something that doesn't get enough praise and appreciation. Andrei Arlovski is 42 years young, and he just earned his 20th win. That's the stat of the week, is 20. His 20th UFC win. As a heavyweight, that just doesn't happen. He's so far ahead of the pack. I think Derek Lewis is the next active fighter, which was like 16. So Andrei Arlovski is just, he's doing the thing. And he's been in the UFC, by the way, which is why the 20 comes around, for 20 years. Obviously took some time off, but he made his debut at the end of 2000. So 2020, man. 2020 hindsight, 2020 Andrei Arlovski, I don't know, but he can keep doing it for another 20. No, I'm just kidding, not 20 years.
Man, he's been at it for a while. It's kind of hard to think, like, 2021, we still have Andrei Arlovski prominently featured frequently on UFC cards. So, all right, let's keep things moving here. Jake Paul and Ben Askren had their quote-unquote boxing match this past weekend. Ended up being a pretty big deal as far as numbers are concerned. The timeline was flooded with it. So let me just throw this question out there to you, gentlemen. I did not watch this live. I actually had a weekend just devoid of fight talk for a while. It was quite wonderful. And instead of coming home to watch fights like I thought I would, I went paintballing first, and I came back because I got some energy. So I'm gonna go to the gym. So I went to the gym and I came back and watched UFC. So I missed the whole Triller event. I did see the main event eventually, but let's start with the resident boxing expert who, to my knowledge, was a big fan of this matchup in the first place. Matt, did you enjoy watching Triller live?
This was his Super Bowl event. What are you talking about?
Oh, he was loving it, huh?
I hate all of you. I've realized quickly now that you guys bring me on for these shit show events. And
it only took him like 4 times to figure out.
Thank you guys for that. I appreciate it. I watched this live. I work at a music studio now, so I was at the music studio Saturday. I was watching it there with people that don't watch boxing. So like it was definitely a weird experience because it's not a normal boxing event. It's a lot of concerts in between that ran on for a god awful amount of time. I'll say this. I enjoyed it because I was right. I knew Jake Paul was going to beat up Ben Askren because Ben Askren is the most athletic person I've ever seen in my life. I mean, Ben Askren is someone that has basically gone throughout an entire MMA career without ever having good striking. Even though he's facing a YouTuber, a Vine star from back in the day, Jake Paul still dedicated himself to the craft of boxing. Like, he still immersed himself in the LA scene, in the boxing scene here, and worked his ass off for years now. And it was clear that he has some natural athletic talent. He's a fluid striker for being a guy that's 3-0, 4-0 now, not having any amateur experience. You can tell that he's a little bit of a natural at it. Ben Askren's everything but a natural. I am shocked at how big it was. Like, I'll be honest. Like, I don't really believe the number from Mike Woods, to be quite honest, the 1.4 million pay-per-view buys. I don't believe that number. John Nash from Bloody Elbow came out and kind of refuted that. Didn't give out a specific number, but said he's hearing a bunch of numbers that are well below that. Whatever it did, it still did a decent number. Like, even if it did, let's say, like 1/3, 1/4 of 1.4 million pay-per-view buys, we're talking about over 400,000, 500,000 buys probably. So this is still a massive success for a new venture in Triller, which is clearly entering into the combat sports world with a lot of fucking capital. So I don't know if this is the next Affliction. I don't know what this is, to be quite honest. I think there's a lot of parallels with history before, but this feels a little bit different in terms of the amount of money thrown at it. This is bigger than DAZN in terms of per event capital thrown at it. This is bigger than Affliction in terms of per money, per capital, per event. This is massive. This is unheard of.
Yeah, I think very good points you bring up there, Matt. And also you look at some of the other business moves that Triller is making. I mean, they bought Versus, the online music battle thing that Timbaland and Swiss Beats started out. So they're heavy into the music, but it's also the fact that they've been able to sustain a level of interest on a pop culture sense. Like, Affliction did what it did, but it only resonated within the MMA bubble, which, as we know, is not that many people. And typically when an event does well in mixed martial arts, it's because it touches outside of that typical typical audience. So Triller seems to be capturing this pop culture thing on a regular basis now. Good or bad, whatever that may be. Jay, Ben, did you watch and did you enjoy what happened?
I didn't watch it, and so I don't have anything to say about it. I think it was Duffy and Keith Schillen's post-fight recap show after the events happened on Saturday, where Keith was saying, I didn't want to watch it, then I kind of had a sneaking suspicion, then I went, okay, fine, I'll see what's going on, and had that feeling and had that appeal. I mean, I never had that feeling. I never had that. Boy, I'm love to know. I didn't even have the morbid curiosity. It wasn't until it was posted on the Sherdog Slack that I went, oh, okay, all right, that's good, that's over with. But there's something else that I need to mention, Ant. You said they bought that Versus thing. Triller also bought FITE TV, which I think personally is a huge purchase, because FITE TV, for those of you unfamiliar, is basically like I don't know how you not like a Netflix of pay-per-view, but a ton of different organizations go through FITE, and you can watch boxing, you can watch kickboxing, you can watch bare knuckle, you can watch MMA, of course, and a lot of big events in pro wrestling, and a lot of big events have gone on through there. FITE is one of the bigger names of challenging UFC Fight Pass, so to speak. Because Fight Pass has acquired all those names. DAZN's out of the game completely, which is a very fascinating thing. And I think something that Triller could probably noticed, that DAZN is completely out of MMA. Like it's all boxing and snooker and darts and whatever else is going on over there. There's no, little gloves fighting. And I don't know where they're getting this money. And maybe Duffy has that answer where Triller is suddenly getting the money to buy out these big companies and then pump out this product. Like if the pay-per-view did 500,000 buys, obviously that's 25 million. If you did 1 million buys, that's 50 million. And that's a lot of money, but where are they getting this money?
What do we have the numbers on the Tyson and Roy Jones fight?
It was over 1 point something million. I know that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of money in the bank right there. And I imagine venture capital dollars are involved at this point too.
They've had several rounds of investment over the last year. I think the last time they had a round of investment, they got like $25 million in investment. Also valued at over $1 billion. They're owned by Proxima Media Group, is the parent company. I want to say, I could be wrong on this. I want to say there's a connection to Sony Entertainment, though I'm not 100% sure on that, to be quite honest. And obviously, Ryan Kavanaugh is the CEO right now.
Okay, so $1 billion, not like a real billion, not like a Chatri billion, like
no,
an
not
actual billion.
They're valued at $1 billion, 1.01, I think it was last time.
Wow. So, well,
yeah, and it says that Tyson Jones Jr. did 1.6.
Yeah.
Like USA Today, and those guys were reporting that number.
And that did have $50 a pop, though. Not
$50.
Whatever the real numbers are, Fight knows them, and it's clearly good enough for them.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Ultimately, it's probably some combination of like capital they're laying out and Triller being able to say to Fight, okay, you see what we've done the last couple of events. This is what we're proposing, for the next 12 to 18 months, and convincing them that okay, looks like there's going to be some serious income coming in.
All right.
I leave the talk of certainly the boxing specifics and the business specifics to Hunter. He's much more familiar with that than me. I didn't watch it at the moment. Obviously, UFC was going on at the time, but I said on the show a week ago that at $50, I wasn't going to check it out no matter what. Like, just it's
right.
I'm so choosy and have so little time and bandwidth and money for like legit good high level boxing, cards, that to spend it on, a clown show. And I don't even mean that in an insulting way, but just kind of a circus thing. It's just not on my radar. And it looks like, I have seen the highlights. It looks like the Askren Paul fight pretty much lived up to my expectations. Just like in his MMA career, Askren walked in as the worst striker and found a way to get the fight to the ground very quickly.
That was good. I like that.
Well,
I would say this about the event. The actual like fight entertainment value was pretty lacking, to be quite honest, throughout the event. The undercard was underwhelming. You had like prospect like Junior Johan out from the East Coast. He's not really that great of a prospect. It was a shitty fight. You had this exhibition fight for put down the guns and put up the gloves initiative. I think I probably got the name wrong there with the initiative, the nonprofit, with two people that have never boxed before. And they literally stopped the fight before the final round because both guys were so tired. And they just said both guys won. That's how bad this was, right? Can
I ask you something? Mm-hmm. Was the best fight on the card the slap fight? You can be honest with us. We love you.
It might have been. To be quite honest. There was really no good fight on this card. The best matchup was Regis Prograis versus Ivan Redkach, and Ivan Redkach took a dive. Like, let's be quite honest about it. Like, he didn't get hit with a punch at all, pretending like it was a low blow, and he thought he was going to get the DQ win, right? Or at least a no contest. It didn't go out that way. It was ruled a TKO loss for him. That was the co-main event. Nothing was really entertainment from a violent standpoint, to be quite honest, except for maybe the main event, which was a quick knockout. And even like the pacing was awful. Like, there's a lot of issues with this card, even though I was like grossly and morbidly entertained by it. There was, I want to say there's 3 fights left on the card. It was 8 p.m. on the West Coast already. Okay. They played back-to-back musical concerts from like Doja Cat and somebody else. I forget who the person was. Dude, it was so bad. And they played like full songs and like 5 songs each. Like, this was a full 15, 20-minute set for each musical act. So it just took up so much time. You had the Snoop Dogg performance, the Ice Cube performance. That took up so much time. The only really good performance was Too Short. Too Short.
I thought you were going to say Justin Bieber. Oh, my God.
No. Too Short was amazing. And that's because it's Too Short. But like, the pacing was brutal. The best part of this show was Pete Davidson, surprisingly, because the entire time he's shitting on it. He's saying, I can't believe boxing has got here. I don't know who either guy in the main event is, but I hope they both lose. This is shitty. This is a circus show. He's just repeating that over and over again. His opening line in the commentary was to Snoop Dogg and Diplo. Like, again, just pointing out how crazy this is. He said, oh, you know what? You guys are so nice. I'll let either one of you fuck my mom. He said that. And Diplo was like, "I'll be a good dad." That was the opening of like the main card. Okay.
Oh my god.
Oscar De La Hoya was only in the co-main event for Frank Mir and Steve Cunningham, and he thought that Frank Mir was Russian, so he kept repeating. He tried to keep saying USSR, but he kept saying USSA, down with the Soviets, like over and over again.
That's what he was saying.
Yeah.
I saw clips and highlights. I've seen Twitter.
Did he think that because his name sounds like the space station?
I don't know.
I think so.
No one knows why.
That's the only way you could think
Like,
that.
how is this not the lead story the next day? Like, why am I just finding out about this now?
Like
that is the fucking stupidest thing I've ever heard in my
De La
life.
Hoya was in bad
Dude,
shape. He was go to rehab shape right there.
I recommend if you want to watch this card, only find the Frank Mir Steve Cunningham fight just for Oscar De La Hoya, because that's the only time he was on the commentary. They took him off right after that because he was that visibly drunk, coked out, whatever. It was that bad, guys. And Pete Davidson shitting on the event throughout. That was entertaining to me in a morbidly, curious way. But again, I was watching it with people that aren't boxing fans, and it was embarrassing. Like, there's numerous times I had to stop and be like, guys, this isn't boxing. Like, this isn't real. Like, this is bullshit. Like, I'm sorry we're going through this. Like, we can stop at any time now, but like what else are we gonna watch? So we watched it till very late at night.
It's like watching a train crash, though. You don't want to watch, but you're gonna.
Yeah, and it was the best type of train crash. It was like, imagine what's the Full Metal Dojo? What's the Thailand
Fight Circus?
Fight Circus, yeah. Right? Imagine that, but $50 million in the budget.
I can't because
that's what it probably was. Like, we're talking about budgets of like at least $20 million for this event.
Crazy.
If I had to guess.
Yeah.
I just to point out, rumor mill in the business in the boxing world, because I've heard this from people inside the industry, that this was a money laundering event. The big indicator to that was that Peter Kahn, who's a long-time guy in the industry in boxing, was brought in by Triller. He was pictured with Daniel Kinahan just last week. Daniel Kinahan, obviously,
he's still around
of the Kinahan cartel, which is a $1 billion drug empire, which is heavily invested in boxing. They're basically running Tyson Fury's career and many other fighters. There's some rumors. I'm not going to get into specifics of it because even I don't know the specifics yet. But it seems like a lot of this is smoke and mirrors. And we know this being in the combat sports world. A lot of big-time events like this end up being smoke and mirrors and not real. That seems what we have.
Well, for legal reasons, I'm going to switch gears to something I'm actually curious, and I want to expand on that you mentioned. I notably mark out for Fight Circus. I like the idea because not only do I know it's nonsense, but the promoters feel that. I mean, we're all in on the joke.
Yes,
I think that's what it's about. Like this upcoming card that's being rescheduled in May. Will have no fights that go on to Sherdog Fight Finder. Like, there's no legitimate MMA or even questionable MMA stuff. It's Indian leg wrestling, and it's two guys inside of an old school phone booth with glass walls that are beating each other. Like, it's that kind of like comedy meets entertainment, like The Amazing Jonathan, the magician who hurt himself, all that stuff. And I enjoy that, and I enjoy that spectacle. So it's weird to me that I can be personally almost revulsed by the idea of the concert boxing event while simultaneously watching little people dressed up as superheroes walk out with Bob Sapp. I don't know how to reconcile myself with that.
I think it's a simple thing to reconcile because I think with Fight Circus, it's making fun as far as the violence is concerned.
Okay,
so we're having fun with the part that's supposed to be serious, and then the Triller event does it the other way around. So we're gonna have this spectacle surrounding actual boxing going on. However, we're not even gonna have quality boxing going on. So you're trying to present people who don't know what they're doing in a place that people are supposed to know what they're doing. There's no expert in Siamese boxing, so we can have fun with that.
Right.
There's no expert in phone booth fighting, so we can have fun with that.
There will be, though, after a couple of these events.
Yeah, it will be a little bit there. So yeah, I do find this whole thing, the existence of this, to be rather interesting. Triller is taking quite a different approach to it than Affliction and other organizations in the past have, and quite frankly, I'm intrigued by some of their business moves, and I think this might be sticking around for a little bit. So be prepared for more Triller discussions as time goes on.
And I will say this: the next event, I'm pretty sure, is the Teofimo Lopez George Kambosos fight, and that's a legitimate
that's a real boxing match.
Yeah. I mean, that's Teofimo Lopez beat Lomachenko in a amazing fight. I mean, he outboxed Vasily Lomachenko. Like, no one has ever done that before. He's fighting a top 10 guy who's mandatory. Triller spent over $6 million on that fight alone.
Jeez.
Okay, like it's quite insane the amount of money they're throwing at legitimate fights and bullshit fights and trying to mix them all together. I don't know what the thinking is behind them long term. I'm curious though. Like, clearly they're trying something here, and I want to see where it goes.
If I can have a parting thought, I mean, Duffy obviously should too if he has some. What's better? Would it be better for a Triller card capped off by the freak show of Askren versus Paul with legit fights, plural, between them? Like, make a legit boxing card and then draw and make a concert around it. Make like a 6-hour event, and people watch the show, and it's part concert, part Snoop Dogg, part drunk Oscar De La Hoya and Ric Flair and madness. And then there's also real legitimate fights. Or should it be circus all the way down? Because I feel like probably the latter, because the circus would take away from the legitimacy of the good fights. But I don't know. I mean, like Tyson versus Jones, we knew that it's going to be just kind of fun and silly, and even then I felt gross about it. But it's circus because it's going to be, it's going to be packed. I mean, Snoop Dogg's a main. I don't know if he's the investor or an executive or exactly what his placement is, but he's part of the show, which means there's always going to be a loose, fun element to it.
And the Triller Fight Club that they keep mentioning that he's a co-owner of.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about.
So they did this promo with Steve Urkel during the event. Yeah, that's.
I saw that.
That sentence is real.
Yep.
Where they both promoted the weed company that Steve Urkel made,
Purple Urkel, I think.
Purple Urkel, yeah.
Yes, and Triller Fight Club. And Triller Fight Club, I believe, from what they described it, is if you have like a world star type of fight in your on your street in your neighborhood like that, you can send it to Triller, and Triller's going to take a cut of it and post it. And I think like Snoop Dogg or somebody else is going to commentate on it. It's quite confusing what they're trying to do, but basically they're trying to monetize world star fights as well.
Well, that sounds like a bad idea.
While also being a competitor to TikTok, because obviously they started out as a TikTok-like app, and they still do that. If you download Triller on your phone, you can sort of do like the TikTok-style videos. I don't know what their thinking is as a company. Their branding is all over the place.
I mean, monetizing street fights just sounds like a horrible, horrible idea for moral reasons. But yeah, that's a whole nother rabbit hole I'm not prepared to go down right now.
Okay,
so
right now, Matt Wells, you and the rest of the MMA fans can tune into the broadcast. Welcome back to Unleashed.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I know Matt Wells he's gonna definitely mark. All right, don't start the show until this point. So thanks, Matt. Thanks, Matt the Greater. No, actually, he'd be Matt the Lesser for that. Matt the Greater's on the show right now. So until Hunter pisses me off, that's his title. All right, so let's move things on to the main event of an actual fight. That was Robert Whittaker taking on Kelvin Gastelum. A very dominant decision win there. We'll use this for our swing or miss section. Fellas, do you think this was enough for Whittaker to skip past Marvin Vettori in the title hunt in the middleweight division?
It should. Like, come on, it's Marvin Vettori. Like, are we really being honest about him being a title contender right now?
I mean, he's got the resume to say it at the moment, but I do find it. I think he knows he's not getting that title shot. Like, the look on his face after.
It was salty, even by the standards of Marvin Vettori.
Yeah, it was like he knew, like, yeah, I'm out of this picture right now. So I'm fighting someone not named Adesanya when this is all said and done. And I think, like, I was probably the loudest person saying that while Whittaker is deserving of another title shot, it makes sense if he didn't get one, especially if you're in Israel Adesanya's camp, because considering what happened in their first fight, that he would have to do something really spectacular in order to earn that shot. And I think he did that. I think he did exactly that. Like, that was a masterclass that he put on against Gastelum. From bell to bell, he looked absolutely flawless in there. So it seems it's his title shot as far as I'm concerned.
I'm going to swing on this one as well. And the funny thing to me is that Adesanya has already cleaned out this division to the point that there was a 3-man derby to be his next challenger among 3 people he's already beaten in Whittaker, Gastelum, and Vettori. And of the 3, Whittaker had the most to prove.
And Brunson.
Gastelum and Brunson, yes. But I would say of the 4 still, Whittaker would be the one who had the most to prove. Vettori, he didn't almost beat Adesanya. That's ridiculous. But he lost a competitive, straightforward decision very early in their careers and legit took a round off him.
Yeah.
And more to the point, you know, he'll make it marketable. He was going to be able to say, hey, I almost beat you. I would beat you in the rematch. And Adesanya's going to bite on that. Gastelum took him to the absolute limit in an instant classic of a title fight, whereas Whittaker got blown out in about 7 minutes. Like, Whittaker had the most to prove to earn a shot back. And he's had to in a world where instant title rematches are almost the default in the UFC. He's had to win 3 fights against solid contenders to get back there. Not only has he won those fights, he has shown some incremental improvements in his game. His striking has always been top shelf. Well, except that there's a shelf above the top where Adesanya lives, but top shelf of normal humans in the division. But even by that standard against Gastelum, he wasn't overreaching in the way that really got him in trouble against Adesanya. He didn't have that kind of psychological warrior, oh, you hit me, I got to get it back right away. That is what really sunk him against Adesanya. He showed offensive wrestling like he really has not many times in his UFC career. His takedown defense is legendary, but the fact that he dumped Kelvin Gastelum with just underhooks like he was John Jones twice in the first round, like didn't even shoot a takedown, just got underhooks and tipped him over. Those are things that I won't favor him against Adesanya, and I have the feeling he'll be probably a solid 2-1 underdog when they fight. But they did give a glimmer of hope if you are the type that you want to see Adesanya challenged or defeated. But ultimately, that's not the UFC's job right now. They're not in a lab trying to come up with someone to beat Israel Adesanya. Same as when George St. Pierre or John Jones or Anderson Silva were at their peak. The UFC's job is to find the next most deserving guy and get him in there, whether he's even money or he's a 5-1 underdog. You just get the next guy in there. It's the only fair thing to do to Adesanya. It's legacy time. If he's cleaned out the division this badly, well, he did just try to go up to 205. He's going to come back, defend his title a few more times. And I do think Whittaker should be the next guy.
Yeah, no, I 100% echo what Ben's saying there. And I want to add, like, plus, like, Whittaker's a money fight. Like, we forget that in a way. Like, Izzy versus Whittaker is a money fight in the UFC.
Especially in Australia.
I mean, it is.
Big time in Australia.
It just is. And like Ben says, Whittaker does look improved. I mean, the way he dominated Kelvin Gastelum isn't the same way that, let's say, like Darren Till dominated Kelvin Gastelum, where I thought Gastelum just sort of slept at the wheel. This was Gastelum, like, dialed in, trying to find shots, trying to find opening, trying to find angles, and he just couldn't. Whittaker's footwork was spectacular. I mean, that to me was probably the thing that stood out the most, was his improved footwork, his improved lateral movement. That was just amazing to me. Though, like Ben says, I do feel like Izzy is still that step above him in all these categories we talk about. Whittaker is that 1B in the division, and that just seems his lot in life, and that's okay. You know, I still want to see the rematch. It's still going to be a fun fight. I think it's going to go far longer than the first fight too. But Izzy seems to be the top dog in this division still by what we've seen.
And I know I already just talked a lot, but this is the perfect argument against instant title rematches. Because imagine if they rematch 5 months later, Izzy dusted him again, and then Whittaker did this. And we'd be like, well, yeah, he looks better. He looks great. He's killing everybody, but we can't make him fight Izzy a third time.
It's
It's a perfect argument for not doing the immediate title rematch unless the meeting was controversial. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
I am very happy too that wasn't happening, because I can think of an upcoming fight that is an instant rematch that I'm pretty sure is about to be burned. That we'll talk about that later. It's really interesting because Whittaker has had to do more. I've said this in the show, and I always remark on this, that former champions have an easier path to a subsequent title shot. Think of how Anthony Pettis would work his way up the ladder, how other fighters would work their way up the ladder, and boom, they're right there. They're in the discussion. Robert Whittaker could lose 2 fights in a row and then win 1 and probably be in contention. But we have a different situation now. We have a guy who's beaten 3 top 10 dangerous guys, and he I mean, I don't want to say he's styled on all 3 of them, because the Till fight was a little underwhelming, but I said this in the Prime Picks column, how Whittaker's offensive wrestling can surprise people because he hits similar. And where did that come from? Trips on Darren Till. And he surprised Kelvin Gastelum, because who would have thought at the end of this fight, at the end of the Whittaker-Gastelum fight, it would be Robert Whittaker that not only would land a takedown, but would hit 3. And Gastelum would have this many. So it's really, it's good to see him develop wrinkles in his game, because we often say, sometimes it's the takedown or the threat of the takedown. And theoretically, if you give a long kickboxer just the possibility that he might actually try and take me down too, you might stifle and take him out of some of his more devastating counters, kicks, whatever game. This was a Robert Whittaker that I looked and I went, yep, this is the next guy, without a doubt. You look at the other resumes, Kevin Holland and Jack Hermanson are the only 2 real noteworthy wins for Vettori, and Derek Brunson has a win on this over Kevin Holland before Vettori, and Edmund Shabazian. Yeah. And Ian Heinisch is a good win too, but it's a couple. But he looked, out of the 3 names, out of the 3 Bears, he looked the worst against Adesanya. Like he was not in the fight, and Adesanya put him away in a round. Whittaker didn't look much better, but to me, it's been long enough. I am also swinging on this, that I think that Whittaker should be the next guy, especially if COVID is really, truly under control in that region, and people can fill the building. You put that in Marvel Stadium, you'll get 55,000 people easy. You might break the record of what it was before. Let's remember, Whittaker fighting Adesanya was his first actual title defense. So Whittaker actually never defended his belt. Adesanya will be coming back, could be coming back down to his division to defeat a fellow country region man, Oceanic region, fellow. This is exactly what the UFC needs. If they want to fill stadiums, do it in a country that knows how to handle COVID. So yeah, Whittaker's the guy, man.
Yeah, especially Volkanovski gets past Brian Ortega, depending on how that plays out. Like what level of health potentially victorious Volkanovski looks like. You put a double title fight there in that stadium in this era, people just needing to see some live sports. Yeah, that sells out in a heartbeat. So, all right, let's keep things moving here. Jeremy Stephens and Drakkar Klose were supposed to have quite the scrap, and I believe it was the co-main event originally. However, that did not happen. Stephens shoved Klose at the weigh-ins, and somehow this resulted in a fight-canceling injury for Drakkar Klose. So I'll have to throw this question out there to you fellas. How does the UFC handle Jeremy Stephens, considering his extracurricular fighting got this fight canceled?
Bail him out of jail and assure everybody that he is going to be fighting this weekend.
Yeah.
I'm just pointing out
that's the only answer, because that's what happened.
It's nice to know that even in the era of COVID, Jeremy Stephens is a fucking idiot is still a valid way that UFC fights get scrapped. Like,
I didn't see this. Like, was the injury visible? Like when you saw the push? Like what?
No, he like tweaked his neck, just kind of stumbling back.
Like
it's
a freakish thing,
but he legit went to the hospital and came back with a diagnosis of like
basically hard whiplash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a stinger.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, and the thing is, Jeremy Stephens is one of the 3 or 4 most prolific fighters in UFC history. He has been in some, like weigh-in face-off shoving matches. I don't know how he doesn't know how to, to measure himself. It's just ridiculous. He's such an idiot. What else is there to say?
He's never been an intellectual titan. That's for sure. No. Fellas, I mean, how would you, if you are the UFC, how do you handle him at this point?
Is this really like an issue like the UFC needs to get involved and like fine him or like punish him? Like, I feel like this is like a freak accident. Like, people shove each other all the time in weigh-ins. Like, we're gonna police that now. Like, I feel like you throw your hands up and just move on. Like, to be quite honest,
that's what's gonna happen.
Maybe you pay like Drakkar Klose like a check under the table because he got hurt. Just do that. But
I think you paid Drakkar Klose a check over the table, like you would have if Stevens had blown weight, like
a show, at least show money, which they're not, by the way.
I think it does actually have to be policed at some point. I'm not saying they need to fine or suspend Stevens, but we're moving in a direction where something serious is going to happen. Like, remember the Jones versus Cormier shoving match where that poor 5'4" like UFC flack went back over the banner, and we're just lucky he didn't break his fucking skull. Like we're headed in that direction.
Dave Scholler, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was Dave. Looking extremely undersized for the job he was being called on to do. Like, usually, like, Dana at least has like his roid muscle and his big tomato head when he's like trying to separate dudes at the weigh-ins. But yeah, like, poor Dave. Yeah, I mean, I know the UFC likes the intense stare down where they're like, driving their foreheads into each other and somebody shoves and woo. But they are obviously playing with fire. They lost a co-main event.
Well, the way you do it is just like the plexiglass, right? Like the old school, like boxing way to do it. Just put the plexiglass in between them, and that even adds a level of intensity as well. Like there's a few notable weigh-ins in boxing, like Mayorga, Fernando Vargas, where like they had the plexiglass.
Dude, Mayorga just needs to live inside plexiglass all the time.
Mayorga's Mayorga is boxing's Jeremy Stephens. So.
Oh my God!
Some holes in it for his like cigarette smoke to escape.
I mean, I think of course, there is a certain level of leeway that needs to be given to fighters because they are fighting, and we hear this all the time about their actions outside of the cage, and it's like, well, they're fighters. We can't expect them to be professors. Yeah, we understand that, but I think the bottom line is always the bottom line. Like, if you are affecting the actual fight product, that's sort of when the promotion needs to be stepping in. Like, if you're okay with them not stepping in when, say, one of your fighters gets in a DUI accident or they say racist things on Twitter or whatever the case may be, if you're okay with that, with the UFC just looking the other way because, hey, it's not the fights, it's not that big of a deal because we don't pay that, we don't watch them, be good citizens, and that's not why we tune in. Well, you tune in to see them fight, and if they're doing dumb things that prevent them from fighting, sounds like a problem that the promotion should handle. So, if they have some rule that says, hey, you guys do whatever you want as far as the promotion is concerned, but if you do something stupid that ruins this fight, well, that's going to get deducted, or you're going to have some sort of in-house disciplinary action. That makes a lot of sense to me because at the end of the day, there have to be fights in order for anyone to make any money or anyone to be entertained at all.
But they cannot write it on their code of conduct because they don't adhere to it. The UFC selectively applies it and says, Miguel Torres, you shouldn't have made that stupid joke. It was a dumb joke, but it was pulled from Workaholics, and they cut him and uncut him, and other things along the way. Matt Mitrione and Fallon Fox and those kinds of. This isn't the same thing, but in terms of the UFC policing its own fighters under violations, it was a shove. It was a thing that happens, and it was a freak accident, all the above, but it happened. It was the direct result. He was the proximate cause and the actual cause of said injury. I'm sure a lot of people speculated some of the things that Klose came down with were possibly a result of his hard weight cut. And it just happened to exacerbate it when he tweaked his neck, because you can get whiplash, and that can have physical effects as well. But I mean, he pushed the guy hard enough to hospitalize him and pull him out of this fight. So I don't think the UFC can afford to not punish Stephens and make a statement out of him and make it, but they're not going to. Nothing is going to happen.
Well, I want to say that the whole code of conduct thing has been thrown under the rug because it got them in issues with labor issues, because that was them policing independent
contractors. Yes, exactly.
And that's why they took it off, basically. So that's why the UFC has this hands-off mentality now, when they didn't circa 2011, 13, right? That's sort of when those stories happen. It's because they don't want to deal with any sort of unionization movement, especially nowadays where the National Labor Relations Board is having a change of guard. You know, this isn't 2 or 3 years ago where they can get away with a lot of what they did because of what NLRB was like because of Trump. Things are different now. They can't get away with the same shit. The PRO Act is about to be passed, for God's sake. Like, a lot of shit could change for the UFC.
And it's worth noting that in a weekend where we had, you know, some people overselling fouls, Klose had no reason to want out of this fight.
Right.
Hard or not, he had made weight for the biggest opportunity of his career, co-main event, biggest name opponent he'd ever fought. I mean, if Jeremy Stephens had shoved Ivan Redkach like that, he would have disappeared for 5 years, and like his Facebook profile would have changed to like the dead person profile. He would have faked his fucking death from that shove.
Yeah, I was amazed once again. I don't know why I was amazed, but every time I'm amazed at the lengths that people will go to claim that fighters are scared.
Oh my God.
I'm amazed by this. Like, if you are the type to, if you have to go to work, but your throat is sore and you stay home, shut the hell up. If you get up in the middle of the night and stub your toe and, oh, that hurts and you need to sit down and shut the hell up. This is a level of toughness you do not understand. You can't be the keyboard warrior that calls out of work because you have a cold and then point to a fighter saying they're scared because they had to get pulled out of a fight with whiplash. Like, these are not the same thing. I just don't understand. Like, the stupidity of people never ceases to amaze me. Just shut the hell up.
People also said that Ben Askren took a dive this weekend.
Yeah, that's another stupid thing.
Onto his face.
Yeah.
So, the legit boxer was the one that actually took the dive. Shout out to Ivan Redkach, making the sport look proud.
Cheers.
Wow. Yeah, it's a lot of stupid people. All right. So let's move things on from here. I'm sure the UFC is not really going to do anything. But anyway, let's move on to Bellator. Bellator 257's main event saw Vadim Nemkov defend the title, moving along in the light heavyweight Grand Prix, victimizing Phil Davis in the process. Do we think that this is further evidence that Nemkov should be favored to retain his belt and eventually win the tournament?
Every guy in remaining in the division, maybe with the exception of Rumble versus Romero, should be really concerned right now, because Phil Davis could not get Vadim Nemkov down at all in a 5-round fight, and Vadim Nemkov could take him down. Now, we were talking about how, like, Whittaker surprised us with his wrestling, was able to get Gastelum down, but Whittaker's kind of taken people down before and has good takedown defense. This Russian guy has 15 fights under his record, and people are still wondering who he is. He's the champion, and he beat Phil Davis again. And I believe I don't believe that the first fight was quite as razor close as people said, but Phil Davis had a great third round. Nemkov's the guy to beat, man, because he can do that to Ryan Bader. He can do that to Corey Anderson. Like, those are the two scariest the scariest type of people. He just out Davis and had overhand rights for days. And, you know, it might not have been a massively diverse striking arsenal, but it was all so effective. I think that if he doesn't win it all, it's because he meets Rumble Johnson and gets caught with an uppercut or something. Like, it would take something like that to take him out of this, because he is, man, I was super impressed by Nemkov in this fight.
Yeah, no, I was too. I don't watch Bellator often, as you guys know, because it's Bellator. But I do like the back on Showtime. I've always liked, the Showtime Scott Coker connection. I was a huge Strikeforce, mark back in the day. So it's nice. It's like the family's back together. I will say that Nemkov is very lucky because he's definitely feasting on a faded like UFC division from circa 2012, right? Like it's definitely a lot of guys that were in the top 10, in the top 5-10 years ago, but we really don't know what they are now. And this tournament's a good sort of measuring stick on who's really the top guy in the division still, in a division that isn't really that talented anymore. I think Romero, Anthony Johnson winner, should be the favorite in the tournament still, if they are the favorite. I'm assuming they are. But Nemkov's right behind them. Like Nemkov is like a blue chip prospect, in my opinion. Like the guy is the real deal. Like he's a legit top 10 guy in the division. I think Bellator has somewhat struck gold with him, to be quite honest, because this is a division that holds so much storied history, but has none of it in the contemporary sense. So it's kind of like the field's wide open for the light heavyweight division for any promoter to sort of make a name for themselves. And Nemkov could be that guy where, he's the new Fedor of MMA. And we all think, oh, he is the best guy in the light heavyweight division right now, not
Blachowicz.
Yeah.
Thank you. Blachowicz. It's intriguing. I'll say that. Nemkov's style isn't the best to me right now, or his technique isn't the best. Like he still has a lot of work, I would say. Like he's still a work in progress. So I'm excited to see what he does. I think he's a legit talent.
I mean, he was already the favorite to win this. Going in, well, I mean, he was like plus 150 against the field, but he had easily the best odds of any individual fighter going in. I would actually consider him the favorite to win it now, because two important things happened. He beat Davis, and I actually thought Davis might have the best chance of unseating him of anyone. While a lot of what Bellator has at light heavyweight right now is kind of slightly past their expiration date, UFC light heavyweights. I mean, not so much so as like their heavyweight division was 2 or 3 years ago, but I would argue that Phil Davis might actually be the best he's ever been right now. I think like Phil Davis's accomplishments since leaving the UFC are kind of underrated. And I think they've been underrated by me until fairly recently. But the other thing that happened is the biggest wild card in the tournament, Dovljan Shimuradov, turned out not to be such great shakes, as Corey Anderson, made him into avocado toast. So with that kind of question mark out of the way, and with Davis out of the way, if anything, even more emphatically than he beat him the first time, yeah, like Matt said, it's going to take something freakish like an Anthony Johnson uppercut from hell to derail Nemkov before he gets to the final. And if he gets to the final against Bader, I see no reason he wouldn't just repeat the job he did the first time. So I'm already kind of looking forward and hoping for Corey Anderson versus Vadim Nemkov. I think that is one of the highest level fights that could be made outside the UFC right now in any weight division. And I'm all in on it. If something happens to fuck that up, I'm going to blame Matt for not watching Bellator.
I mean, I just really want to see Romero and Rumble before I'm really sold on anyone necessarily in this tournament. Like, I would favor Nemkov if you gun to my head right now, but I really got to see what that fight looks like. I mean, Rumble Johnson has continually shown himself to be quite the disturber for odds makers, to just suddenly dynamite KO someone out of nowhere, but he hasn't fought for years. Yoel Romero is the ultimate master of chaos in mixed martial arts and has done all sorts of just improbable things. However, one day he's actually going to seem like he's a 58-year-old or however old he is. And then on top of that, like he's fighting a division up. And at least and Matt, I believe, it was me and you there this time for one of the UFCs that we covered that he was fighting on, that like he was talking about he wasn't even that big for as far as his weight cut is concerned. He would not be a very big 205er. So I want to see what he looks like in there against true light heavyweights, like just the physical stature, and that might determine a lot too. So like I said, gun in my head, Nemkov, but we got some strange things going on, and strange things can happen. If they happen anywhere, it will be Bellator for one of these tournaments. So yeah, that kind of does it from my my perspective here. So let's move things on to eating crow. So break out your seasoning salt, or break out the garlic, or break out the ground pepper. What did you get wrong this past weekend? Ben, I'll begin with you.
I favored Chase Sherman over Andrei Arlovski going into that fight. And so did the odds makers, just slightly. I mean, Andrei Arlovski has reached a point in his career where he can be slotted in as an equal value replacement for Parker Porter.
That hurts.
Who was 1-1 in the UFC. And forgive me for kind of, taking a little bit of the long way around here, but I've realized this weekend that it's impossible to explain the strangeness of Andrei Arlovski's career and longevity to someone who has come to this sport in the last 5 years or so. Like to someone who came along in the Conor and Ronda era, which honestly accounts for probably the majority of people who watch MMA right now. Like that was a boom, at least as big in its own way as the post-Tough boom. It's impossible to explain. I can tell you the facts and figures. He debuted at UFC 28. He's literally been in the UFC longer than Dana White. Like, think about that. He debuted in the SEG era. And yeah, he came and went, but he was there before Dana White. I assume he just, gives Buffer a little extra fist bump as like the guys that have been around in, since the SEG era, whenever they meet. But it's not just that he's been around and has been a more or less top shelf heavyweight for 20 years. It's that you never would have guessed this would have been the guy to do it. The story on him a full decade ago is that, his chin is shot. He's slipping, his top gear of that outstanding athleticism for such a big guy is slipping just a little bit. He'll never be a top heavyweight again. I mean, he's had 3 4-fight or more or greater losing streaks, and he's bounced back each time. And even now at 42 years old, 10 years after his chin was supposedly shot, who's knocked him out in the last 5 years? Stipe Miocic, Ciryl Gane, and Jairzinho Rozenstruik. So the greatest heavyweight of all time, and arguably 2 of the 3 greatest knockout artists in the UFC right now. That shot chin is still carrying him along. He said he wants to fight for another 2 years, and I can't hate him for it. It's not like he's been knocked out he's not, Bigfoot Silva saying, I want to keep fighting after getting, just knocked out horribly 5 times in a row. Like I'm eating crow in a big way when it comes to Andrei Arlovski, and he beat Chase Sherman in just the most Arlovski way. It wasn't super pretty, but he made adjustments during and after the first round that Chase Sherman could not respond to, and it was pretty easy and straightforward for him after that. And that supposedly cracked chin was never even called into question. I'm eating all kinds of crow. It is Belarusian crow. It is old and tough, just like Andrei Arlovski, and I will take it with a smile.
All right, Jay, why are you eating crow this week?
Well, I was the one who microwaved it first to give it to Duffy because I actually thought that Arlovski was going to do what he did, jab his way to freedom, and it happened. But I am eating some crow of my own because of another heavyweight contest, and it isn't just because I picked the winner incorrectly, because I believe that the scorecards were not accurate. Not just that I thought Juan Espino was going to hand Alexander Romanov the first loss, or the strike heard around the world, or that nobody actually heard, but that I thought this fight was going to be fun. I thought this fight was going to be a test of a very strong Senegalese lamb wrestler who is used to, which Duffy, you've said what I've been calling it for years, African judo or African sumo, and just 2 big bodies trying to push each other around, versus I'm going to suplex you like you're a bag of potatoes, Alexander Romanov. Just strength versus power, youth versus surprisingly not a lot of miles on 40. And I thought it was going to be an interesting style matchup. They'd be in interesting odd positions. Then maybe one would go for a submission and the other would reverse it, and there'd be a heavyweight scramble. Like, I didn't think this was going to be like a Tim Elliott, Louis Smolka kind of thing, one of those wild and crazy things. But I saw interesting exchanges in this fight, and I don't believe there were any, and that's why I'm eating crow, because I expected so much. I expected questions to be answered And, is this the guy? Is Juan Espino really actually okay being 40 years, almost 40 as a heavyweight? Does he still have like 7 more years to go? I didn't learn a damn thing, and that hurts my feelings.
I mean, there was a strange position, lying on your back, asking through a translator what happens if I quit. It is definitely an unusual position to see in MMA.
Yeah, it was just like disappointment is that picture. Like, just, oh man, no. Of all the, like what's the worst result of a fight? To be stopped by a foul or something, like, oh man, it was awesome, like Eddie Alvarez and Dustin Poirier, the knee and bang, and oh no, it could have been so awesome, something like that. But it's even worse when it's a terrible fight and then something goes wrong and it's questionable and we're all looking at it going, what the heck just happened? It just, that fight is why we can't have nice things.
All right, Matt, why are you eating crow this week?
The only fight that I picked that I got wrong this weekend from all the cards was the I know, right? One of the few.
Big shot.
Fair, I only made like 3 picks on the UFC card, so it doesn't really count that much. The only fight like I really got wrong was the Otha Jones the third fight on the Matchroom card. Otha Jones third was a highly touted boxing prospect out of the U.S. One of the generation, the new generation that was sort of talked about as should they go wait for the Olympics after COVID or should they go pro? He went pro, went about 4 or 5-0, and kind of didn't look the goods, to be quite honest. Had a draw in his last fight and fought a really tough club fighter in Jorge Castaneda, and Castaneda just whooped his ass. Like, it was bad. So Otha Jones III, the highly touted prospect picked up by Matchroom US, not looking so good.
Well, my crow this week is pretty much I got to share with Ben, because the only pick that I was that I'm worth highlighting here was Chase Sherman over Andrei Arlovski, which was proven wrong, and especially the way the fight started. That first round, and Arlovski was getting boxed up. It's like, wow, this is going to go exactly where I thought it would, and it didn't. So Adonis feels some kind of way about that, so he's upset that I picked against Andrei.
Adonis is like, I'll be fighting Andrei Arlovski in 19 years from now.
Yeah, he's ready.
Yeah,
yep.
Like my
for
son
the title,
will be the one to dethrone Arlovski at the rate he keeps fighting. All right, so let's move things on to the greatest titled segment in all of media history. I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons. This is where we share something that surprised us or ironically did not over the past week. So I'll begin with you, Matt. What's your I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons moment this week?
I'll be honest. The thing that surprised me the most is how morbidly entertained I was by the Jake Paul Ben Askren card. I will admit it, guys. I enjoyed it for what it was. To be fair, though, I didn't pay for it. I will say that. I allegedly did not pay for it. So that maybe helped alleviate some of the obvious like bullshit parts of the card, but it was entertaining. And like there is part of that aspect of the fight game where you want to feel like you're in the know with what's happening, right? Like for the fight circuit stuff, like I remember when that show was going on, I got the link and I was like, oh, I need to watch this. This is clearly going to be the topic conversation for the next few days. So I got to watch this. I felt the same urge with Jake Paul, Ben Askren, especially all of the in-between factors. And I will say that I was pleasantly surprised by Pete Davidson being a really entertaining commentary analyst on a boxing card. Maybe because he just shit on the whole time. I don't know.
That was my question. Would he be a good analyst for like a serious straight-laced regular boxing card?
No, not at all.
But he's the perfect guy to chronicle like as Rome burns.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Like he needs to be on every Triller card that has some bullshit on it. Like I don't know about the Lopez Cambosos card. I heard that they want to put something on the co-main event. I forget if it's the Holyfield fight or the Oscar fight. Forget which one. But I mean, throw Pete on that fight alone, because you got him and who else? Who else was really good? Ray Flores, who does a lot of the PBC stuff, right, and the boxing stuff. He was drunk as hell on the telecast.
Really?
Way better. Improved his game. I will say that. Entertaining.
Wow. All right. Jay, what's your I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons moment this week?
I am surprised that Matt Hunter is convincing me that I might need to take a look at this stupid nonsense card. Nope, not going to do it. I love you. Not going to do it. I can't. I respect me. So instead, I'll talk about a topic that is very near and dear to my hand. A couple weeks ago, we learned of a very disappointing, unfortunate, painful situation at an event in Philadelphia at CFFC 94, where Katagliev had his left ring finger almost completely detached, and it was hanging on by a little strand of skin, and he had it surgically reattached. Turned out to be a happy story. Okay, cool. Well, there's been an update because life finds a way, and it broke my little heart, because when working on Sherdog Fight Finder, there's a committee, so to speak, of individuals that talk about these matters, to, official rulings and how do we want to look at this, and okay, here's historical precedent, and we talk about this because it's better to have more cooks in the kitchen to be able to make the stew. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, the decision as it stood was that it was a TKO due to a detached finger, which, by the way, was the first time that had ever been entered into the Sherdog Fight Finder database, and likely the last. I regret to inform you all that it has now been changed to no contest overturned, because the Pennsylvania Commission reviewed the footage, found out basically that Goodale was in the grappling exchanges. There was a lot of glove grabbing and back and forth, and one of the glove grabs, boop. So it was the result that the injury was the result of a foul, a straight foul. It wasn't just that it was the result of grueling activity or something. It was directly resulting from illegal moves. So as that happens, they have overturned the fight to what they call the no decision. Now, no contest and no decision are not identical in meaning and practice, but for intents and purposes, no contest is the nomenclature we use. So the finger, we no longer have detached finger in the Sherdog Fight Finder database. But at least now Pliev doesn't have that loss on his record.
I'm actually relieved. I thought you were going to say that, like, maybe the reattachment hadn't taken and it ended up losing the finger after all.
No, he got a different one. Got Dominic Cruz's.
I got Dominic. Okay,
cool. I knew it was going to be a Dominic Cruz joke in here somewhere. A cadaver finger. So, all right. Ben, what's your I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons moment this week?
I will head back over to Bellator 257 for this one, where in a main card matchup, Paul Daley took on Sabah Homasi, former UFC fighter. I'm not surprised that Daley beat Homasi, because Daley is faded, but it's this is going to sound mean. I don't mean it to, but it kind of has been versus never was. Like, even Daley now is better than Homasi ever was. But Bellator has proven to be a haven, like, not only for like UFC retreads in the late stages of their career. That doesn't bother me at all. But for UFC fighters who in some cases seem kind of checked out of their own careers mentally. I mean, how many fights did Rampage Jackson get in Bellator after he ceased to give even the slightest fraction of a fuck about it? And Daley seemed to be falling into that category. You think of how he's just kind of like clowning on the ground while getting just trucked by John Fitch, or his goofy fight against Michael Venom Page. I was surprised in the most pleasant way that Daley pulled out of nowhere a highlight like the crazy stuff he used to do in his like coked up prime. What he did, I mean, it was a wild fight anyway. It was on the level of, Daley Diaz for the wildest first round, but he caught a kick by Homasi with his left hand. So catching a left foot with his left hand. So it's already this crazy crossbody thing. He lets it go, but as he does so, he pulls Homasi's foot towards him. So literally the only thing Homasi can do to regain his balance is come forward and plant onto that foot. And then with the same hand that he's done all this with, he catches him with a left hook and just flattens him. It was sensational. It will make like my knockout of the year top 5 probably. It probably won't win because it's not fireworks. It's not this insane like 360 degree like wheel kick that's really kinetic and makes a great gif, but it's kind of like a well-made movie in that the more you watch it, the more impressive it gets. And so I've had that highlight gif just, I've probably watched it 25 times since the fight. And just, I was surprised that at least for one brief shining moment, Paul Daley reminded me why I used to think he was pretty damn awesome.
All right, it's a good one there. I'm not surprised Mr. Falcon's moment goes back to Triller. Just the aftermath of it, to see the footage of Tyron Woodley and Jake Paul and his entourage going back and forth, and it's like, wow, I guess we're doing this again. Yeah, so we're probably going to do this again.
I'm picking Jake Paul. I don't know yet. I'm just joking.
Then apparently he called out Daniel Cormier also. Like this has gotten.
That's closer in weight, probably. That's closer.
Jesus Christ, this is getting ludicrous. All right.
I wish the Charlie Z was heavier.
Because
he's like 145, so I don't think that would be sanctioned.
No, he's like 389. Oh, you mean his weight, not his record.
I'm still waiting to run into Charlie Z at the gym so I can head kick him. So I'm still waiting on that moment.
I call that a moral victory. Charlie Z 4-12-0. He had to kick me.
You know what's crazy? Like, new fans have no idea who Charlie Z is. It's sad.
Yeah, do your homework there, kiddies.
And I actually feel a little bad making fun of someone who probably has mental problems. But fuck it, that's YouTube. Like,
yeah, I don't feel bad. He preyed on
it
a lot
wasn't
of
someone.
people,
It wasn't someone else filming him. You know.
Right,
Yeah,
that's exactly right. He introduced himself to the world as such.
So his fault. All right, so let's move things on to the speed bag, and you guys are gonna have 10 seconds to answer these questions. So, question number one, I'll start with you on this one, Matt. How excited are you about the announcement of the season 29 cast of The Ultimate Fighter?
I don't know any of the names on it. Not a single person. Volkanovski's cool and Brian Ortega's cool, so I'll watch it. Not really.
Jay.
It hurt my feelings again. This is the Hurt Me broadcast because they basically pulled the LFAs 135 and 185.
All right, and Ben.
What Jay said. I was intrigued when they named the weight classes, and then when I saw what they done, they basically did to LFA what they have been doing to Invicta for a while.
Thank you.
All right. All right.
Saying that for years.
Second question. I'll begin with you, Jay. Who's next for Jake Paul?
Who sucks? Somebody who shouldn't be in the ring with anybody. That's it.
Ben.
I'm sorry. They are Oscar De La Hoya's coke dealer.
Matt.
That's the good guys, though.
I'll mention a legitimate name. Tommy Fury has been calling him out. Both are like 4 or 5-0. Why not do it? It's a Fury brother.
Is he an actual Fury?
Yes.
Yeah, his brother's like a model or something too, right?
Yeah. No, he was on I forget the reality TV show in the UK. He's a big star, Tommy Fury. Like
Geordie Shore.
Not that one, but one of those types of shows.
All right. So last question. I'll begin with you, Ben, on this one. Where does Frank Mir go next after losing his boxing match this past weekend?
I think he goes to bare knuckle. I mean, he talked about coming back to MMA, but I think he'd actually kill people in bare knuckle. He looked good.
He did look good.
Matt.
Yeah, I thought Frank Mir actually surprisingly looked good against Steve Cunningham, who's a really good boxer, traditionally speaking. Bare knuckle, another pro fight, go for it.
Jay.
I'm pretty sure that Frank Mir is going to BK because I think he's gunning for a rematch with Steve Cunningham in BK.
Oh, it's interesting. All right, so I'm going to change this clock now to 30 seconds on here. I'm going to answer all three questions in succession. The clock will begin after reading the first question. So, how excited was I about the announcement of the season 29 cast of The Ultimate Fighter? I was so excited that I didn't even bother to click on any article about it. I have no idea who's in it, and I still won't watch the show. So that's how excited I am. Who's next for Jake Paul? I don't know. Whatever. Yeah, Woodley. Sure. Yeah, let's do that. That would be bad. And Frank Mir going to BK makes all the sense in the world. It's the graveyard of MMA fighters, and he's got a little bit more life left in him, apparently. So there we go. All right.
Okay, I need to ask something that maybe one of you two, I don't know, maybe somebody knows. So Jake Paul's what, 3-0 now?
I think it's 4-0.
Matt Hunter, Jake Paul fan, knows his record very well.
So,
Continue.
So I don't know if I'm
3-0. 3-0. Sorry.
I don't know if I'm. He beat another YouTube guy.
Yep.
He beat a basketball player, and he beat an ex-UFC guy. So what's the next place he conquers? Is it music? Is it another sport like Jose Canseco? Is it
actually Jose Canseco would, because
no.
That actually that wouldn't shock me at all. Although he's kind of old now, but still, I mean, he was a guy. He's the guy who did try to fight Hungman Choi in Dream. Was it Dream or Pride? The end of Pride or the beginning of Dream? Okay.
It was a dream. It was all just a dream.
I am fairly certain it will not be Tyron Woodley.
No, I don't think the UFC let him.
Dylan Dennis keeps calling out anyone that, you know.
Yeah, Coker lets his guys do pretty much whatever they want. So
it's Bellator press.
Yeah, and Dennis will probably get knocked out too. So, so we know Jake will take that fight. All right. So let's move things on here because the UFC is going to pack the VyStar Veterans Memorial Arena, 15,000 people in a full capacity sellout this weekend because COVID doesn't exist. 3 belts on the line. First and foremost, briefly, and I know we've talked about this before, but hey, we're about to dive headfirst into this. Should this be happening?
I have an answer. By the way, in case you're wondering. Why? Okay, we know the UFC wants to beat everybody back. They didn't. It's been happening in boxing. Wrestling events have been having fans back in max capacity. Bare knuckle have been too. So the UFC was trying to make the claim that it would be the first full big sellout back. So it's not. It's not that. So it doesn't have that like little thing to claim on its next media. Look how awesome I am, Dana White. Video.
He'll still claim it though.
It has Ann Walker with red X's in his eyes. Nothing like that. It doesn't make sense for all of the reasons, other than gate money, which I'm sure the gate's going to be high because ticket prices are at a premium because people are willing to pay elevated prices for the like lodge seats that they'd normally spend $200 on. They'll spend $800 on because people are dying to do something. But it doesn't seem like that much of a lucrative endeavor to do one-offs like this, 10 mil, 20 mil a pop. I mean, it's only $20 million, but for a company like that, it just feels like a drop in the bucket. And the expense, the heartache, the nightmare that goes into running and staging an event in a state, by the way, in Florida, that is just cases are, it's not vertical, but it's exponentially growing the past week or two, following the I think they're calling it the spring break boom, or the spring break surge, or the spring break something. When everybody went down to Florida, and Ron DeSantis is like, yeah, you can gather, but other people that gather are rioting. But that's a whole different thing. We don't talk about that. It's insane. Like, I'm almost lost for words at the idea that we have to put 15,000 people in a state that has mathematically, not just me being judgmental, not fared well with the whole COVID thing. Let's put people that don't wear masks in an enclosed area because breathing is how people live, and people are going to be in the arena and in the stands, and media members and staff members and fighters, by the way, are going to be breathing the same air as these, locals, which who knows what's going to happen. It's super spreader there's no way it won't be a super spreader, and that sucks because of what it will do to the UFC. What happens if Jorge Masvidal gets knocked out to it. Some major thing. There's so much that could go wrong. There's so much to risk. The risk reward does not make sense to me other than a purely financial purpose. The UFC has a perfect area to go and stage events, and they've done it well with major fights. So other than gate money, that is the sole reason, is to collect gate money. And it just seems short-sighted, dangerous, and it's April 19th, 2021, and we're having the exact same conversation we had a year ago. And it blows my mind.
Well, Jay, you clearly didn't see that the tickets come with disclaimers, right?
Like,
it's all good.
Like, those disclaimers are added to pretty much every ticket purchase for any event that you go to these days.
Sign your rights away the moment you buy that ticket, baby.
I am like, I don't know.
You contractually cannot catch COVID if you buy a ticket and you sign that waiver. Contractually, COVID cannot infect you.
Like, UFC 261 it will permanently have the heading UFC 261 assumption of risk. It's just, that's it. There's no way around it. And I really hope that staff members and media members and fighters in their corners and trainers and camps don't contract COVID because they're going to travel down to Florida.
To build off of what Jay is saying here, the reason why we're getting this event and the way it is and the setup it is because it's the first time the UFC, in theory, can have an event in the U.S. With full attendance to make a lot of money off of. Even though Jay says it's just the gate, and obviously with the ESPN setup with the UFC gets a lot of money just having an event, right? They don't really need it, right? But it's a capitalist enterprise, it's a capitalist corporation. They're going to want to make as much profit off of the surplus as they can. So what they're going to do is they're going to pack this stadium as much as they can, oversell or overprice the tickets as they usually do, and they're going to stack this card in hopes to bring as many people as possible in spite of the risk of COVID. And they can do that because they undercut the labor value of the fighters so significantly that they can stack 3 bona fide pay-per-view draws in boxing that would get all respectively 7-figure paychecks. They can undercut their value so much, so drastically, that they can stack a card in this way. So that's why they're doing it. That's why they're having in Florida, so they can make as much money as possible, because that's what they care about. They don't care about the fighter's health. They don't care about their consumer health. They don't care about the well-being of anyone other than the profit margins for the corporation, and that's just the reality to it.
Yeah, and also I think it's important to note that the UFC now has a smaller ownership group. That a smaller group of people now own this company, so that means a smaller group of people are now more debt leveraged. In Endeavor has got to come up with more capital. So, I mean, they're nickel and diming fighters for getting show money when their opponent falls out at the last second,
or when their opponent hurts them on weigh-in after they weigh in.
Right? Yeah. So they're nickel and diming to that extent. So I'd imagine that if they see this opportunity to make a chunk of several $1 million, all right, let's just go do it, and consequences be damned. And we put it in a state which pretty much consequences be damned about everything in general. And we'll see what happens. And what happens is fine because, hey, like I said earlier, there was a disclaimer when you bought the tickets.
Now, I have a question. I want to pose it to Duffy in particular because it's in a state that will be having an event live coming to it in the next month. UFC 262 takes place in Houston. So the UFC wants to obviously make money from this whole situation. Then why is it only staging pay-per-view blockbuster events in why wouldn't they make a residency in Houston? They will pack the place every weekend because it's the only show in town.
No, it's odd. I don't understand it either. And plus it's Texas. There's like 5 cities you can do a circuit in. You can do San Antonio, Austin, Houston, Dallas, just do the circuit, and like I don't understand why they don't do it.
The Canelo card over in San Antonio is what lit the fire under Dana White. Like he was mad that boxing put 15,000 people into a stadium before he did. Like that's what started all this. As bad as Florida is, I am slightly gratified that it's made Texas look better by comparison. But that's about all we can say. Like,
And in Florida, they could do a circuit. Like, let's be honest, Tampa, Orlando, Miami, like they could do a circuit in that state too.
Well, I think this is like a test run. That's kind of what the impression I'm getting, because they haven't announced officially announced locations for some fight nights and everything and pay-per-views and stuff. At least not until very recently. I think this is going to be a test run. If all goes well at this moment, not talking about the 2 weeks later when 5,000 people that were in there get sick, not that. But if this event goes well and they don't have too many cancellations on weigh-in day and everything else, then all right, so we'll come back here. So after we go to Texas, they're trying to, and I don't know if T-Mobile is official for the McGregor card.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so but that can be reversed at some point. So they have to do their test runs, and this is what this is. So, of course, test Florida, test Texas, because those are the places for sure you can go if you can pull it off.
And let's not forget also that California is going to be opening up, I believe, from what I was told by the commission, because I'm consulting with the local promotion with MMA cards and boxing cards they're putting on later this year. They're opening up June 19th, is what we've been told by the commission. So
during summer, yeah,
it's going to be sooner rather than later, where the UFC kind of missed the ball on being able to capitalize on Texas and Florida the way boxing has, for example, which is surprising because usually we've never seen boxing sort of outpace the UFC in terms of efficiency as a sport, and they did it. I'm shocked.
Yeah. So, all right, fellas. So now let's actually talk about the fights themselves before we wrap things up here. So, classic UFC 261 segment. Who you got? Matt, I'll begin with you. Valentina Shevchenko, Jessica Andrade for the strawweight title. Who you got?
I want to make note of this, that
flyweight title, sorry.
I thought Andrade got low-key robbed in the Thug Rose fight. I thought she won 2 rounds. I'll be honest, maybe I'm the outlier there, but I thought she won 2 rounds. So I'm glad she's getting a title shot, irregardless of the division. I'll be quite honest about that. And plus, this is a matchup I've wanted for some time. It's a matchup that makes sense to me. There's not a lot of depth in the flyweight division, obviously, for the women's flyweight division. It's relatively a new division where Shevchenko has lorded over it. This presents some intriguing style matchups with a champion that's been largely dominant. Andrade might be the faster striker in terms of hand speed. She might be the stronger striker in terms of power. I think her boxing has improved drastically over the last few years. She used to be just kind of a brawler in a sense, but she's really refined her ability. She has a amazing ability to get under a jab and on the inside and pressure fighters. I could see that happening here with Shevchenko. I'm still picking Shevchenko slightly by decision, but this could be a barn burner. This could be a highly technical fight for 5 rounds. This could be a knockout within 2 rounds. I'm really intrigued by this matchup, and it could go a lot of ways.
All right. Ben, who you got?
I'm going to end up watching a lot more tape before I really make my mind up. And I know that Val right now is close to a 4-1 favorite, but gut pick, I'm leaning Andrade. I think Andrade will be, she'll be the best fighter. And even though she is a good bit smaller, the most just physical, explosive, strong fighter that Valentina Shevchenko has fought since Amanda Nunes. And while Shevchenko has been she's blanked, I think it's 6 or 7 women in a row since the last Nunes fight. There are gaps in the armor. She's not been absolutely perfect in these fights. And I think she's going to offer just some windows of opportunity that Andrade is going to be quick and aggressive enough to take advantage of. I might change my mind, but gun to my head right now, I'm leaning Andrade.
All right, Jay, who you got?
Well, there is no lead bearing here either. I think that of all the fights that are happening on this card, this is my upset special. I am going with Jessica Andrade, and I'm going with that not just because of the betting line, the fact that she's over a plus. I think she's plus 320, 325 or so as an underdog, but she presents a style and an aggressiveness that I think is Shevchenko will have to really do her homework, because she hasn't fought anybody like this, like of any regard like this, since Amanda Nunes. And that was back in 2017 was the last time and so she has cruised through competition. She hasn't really had to exert herself in any meaningful way. I mean, when she fought, Liz Carmouche, I don't think either was sweating after 25 minutes of fight. This is an Andrade who's aggressive to a fault, who can press the pace, who can muscle you around. She had about, I think Caitlin Chukagian had about like 8 inches of height and just looked like the bigger fighter across the board. And Andrade just pushed her into the clinch. No, we're going this way. I'm driving this train. I'm the captain now. So it was just really interesting to see how she controlled that fight and worked the body, and was just all the aggression. She threw, I think she tried a double flying knee like Jose Aldo, that kind of thing. I think it's that kind of balls to the wall aggressiveness that Shevchenko is not going to be ready for. And I've got to go with Andrade here in my crazy let's get weird upset.
Jay picking Jessica Andrade to be the UFC's first Somalian champion. Look at him go.
What are you gonna do?
All right, Matt, who you got?
I already picked.
Oh, you did.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. All right. So I guess it's my turn.
He picked Jennifer Maia. I don't know if he was watching the right fight.
Yeah, that's what I said, because he had that kind of limp pick. He wasn't really waffling.
I'll be honest. I wanted to pick Andrade, and I was like, oh no, they're gonna pick Shevchenko. Then you go pick Andrade. I'm like, damn it, I should have picked Andrade first.
That's why I didn't remember, because it was so unremarkable what you said. So I'm going to go with Shevchenko to win this one. I think people are looking too much into the Jennifer Maia fight. That was a Shevchenko that didn't really have much to be inspired by, I believe. And it allowed for Maia to win moments. And she still got dominated when all was said and done. I think this opponent is going to have Shevchenko at her absolute best. And quite frankly, you're talking about someone who's handled the aggression of Amanda Nunes, and I think you can handle the aggression of Jessica Andrade. I think so. Like, she's gonna have the reach advantage. I think they might even each other out as far as speed is concerned. Shevchenko is certainly not a slow striker at all. I think this is going to be the ultimate bull and matador situation. I think Andrade is going to come charging in with a head full of steam if Shevchenko is going to pick her apart. And we've seen Rose do that to Andrade. Until that slam, that's exactly what we saw Rose Namajunas do to her. I don't think Shevchenko is going to give up the opportunity the way Rose did in their first fight. I believe she's going to win a very clear-cut decision. And it's going to look pretty easy. I'd say after the second round.
Well, I will leave it with this. Back when Jessica Andrade was fighting at 135, all 5'2", 135 pounds, going, I don't know if this is the division for me, getting pushed around by, Liz Carmouche and whatnot. I said, I wish there was a better division for her, because at the time she had to drop down to strawweight. And that was just such a gnarly cut from point A to point B. 20 pounds is a big deal for those lower divisions. If there were 115 or if there were 125, that'd be it. So now 125. I'm going, the sky's the limit.
All right. So Jay, I might as well start with you on this one. Weili Zhang and Rose Namajunas for the strawweight title. Who you got?
So I'm going with my upset spec. I already blew it. No, I can't upset in this one. I see Weili Zhang has impressed me in such a way that even though I know what Rose is fully capable of and how she can box up Joanna Jędrzejczyk too and take less damage along the way, I just see it's probably the counter striking that is Weili Zhang can do, either that or the ability that it's not one punch knockout power, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be. Like when I was breaking down the Arlovski Chase Sherman fight. Chase Sherman has almost all of his wins by knockout, but they're not really the knock your block off one shot kills. They're the kind of clubbing power, the stunning power that makes you go, "Who? What just hit me?" And then he can get you out that way. Weili Zhang has that kind of ability to hit somebody and make them kind of do like a reset. Like you can almost see them go, oh, whoa, that was weird. When she hit Jessica Andrade with that knee, and Andrade just for a moment, it was that moment she needed to go, oh crap, I'm in trouble here, and then she finished the job. Yes, the Jessica Andrade, who I said is going to beat up a woman 10 pounds heavier. Yes, I'm aware of that. I see just too much good in Weili Zhang to do that, and comparatively, the body of work, while impressive, has been a lot less active, and I think that is really going to be a disadvantage in this fight. When Weili Zhang made her debut, when she made her debut and has pushed her way through, Rose has fought like 3 times, and for obvious a lot of reasons that have been going on. I think I don't know if she'll get the finish, because Rose is a really surprisingly sharp and effective boxer, and I think she'll have her moments. I'm going to gravitate towards Zhang by decision. I might change that to like a 3rd round knockout later, but I think for now it's going to be Zhang.
All right, Ben, who you got?
I am always scared to underestimate Rose Namajunas' chances or write her off, because sorry, got something stuck in my throat. Even when she is outmatched, or even when she is in a disadvantageous style matchup, she is such a slick boxer, and she's such an opportunistic submission artist that she's never out of it. Like, she has the punchers and the grapple chance every time out, almost no matter whom she's fighting. Having said that, Zhang is, I think, a terrible matchup for her. Zhang is not, she doesn't have the polish in her kickboxing of a Joanna Jędrzejczyk, but she outstruck Joanna Jędrzejczyk. She isn't quite a Jessica Andrade, but she's one of the only women in that division that has just that level of raw physicality and power that, you know what, I could completely see her knocking out Rose Namajunas by spiking on her head while Rose goes for like a nice finesse, like Kimura defense. Like, she has avenues to punish Namajunas pretty much everywhere, and I'm going to pick her to do so, even though Namajunas will be the livest of live dogs.
All right, Matt, who you got?
Definitely better dead than a fascist. That's for sure right there. But Zhang should win this one. Like, let's be honest here. She's better than Rose Namajunas in every category except for that sort of that opportunistic submission style that Rose has. I will say that she's her ability to grab a limb in a split-second notice and a split-second opening is quite impressive. But Zhang's grappling has shown to be one of the best in the divisions. Like, her wrestling is probably the best in the division. I feel like she can just overpower Rose Namajunas in any category, like in terms of like a grappling exchange, a clinch exchange. She's the stronger fighter in those moments. And plus, like, I still go back to that second Andrade fight with Rose Namajunas, where I thought Rose Namajunas was outboxed. Like, I didn't think she boxed that well. I thought she survived barely on her jab and her lateral movement. And can she do that again here with Zhang for 5 rounds? I don't see that happening. Like, I don't see a real path of victory for Rose Namajunas that equals sustained offense, consistent offense. It's her catching Weili Zhang. I see Weili Zhang being the consistent fighter here, setting the tempo, setting the range, being the one controlling the fight while beating up Rose Namajunas. Like, this is going to get pretty violent, and I kind of predict that by round 3 or 4, all of us watching it are going to be like, please stop the fight. Can we please stop this? Like, it doesn't need to keep going on. And it still goes on. I kind of see it going that way. It's going to be very brutal. And just shout out to Zhang and her team for taking the high road in all of the pre-fight shit. Shout out to her, man. And all solidarity to the Chinese people.
All right. So, if you asked me this, a week ago, my answer would have been Rose Namajunas. The thing is, Rose, I think she does have a path to victory, but it involves her fighting in a flawless fashion. It involves her being faster, using better footwork, staying to the outside, you know, at least threatening with enough grappling to make Weili, who isn't, as Jay said earlier, or Ben said earlier, isn't the most polished kickboxer, to just give her to hesitate just a little bit, and that would be all that Rose needed to make a speed advantage even more apparent, and to just outslick her. But like I said, that relies on her being at her best. The way she kind of came up with this illogical, you know, Weili is this or it is better dead than red and all this, the way she came up with that, to me, sounds like someone struggling for motivation. They're struggling to kind of find a reason other than the fact that a trained killer is going to try to cave your head in, to get up for the fight. If she's struggling with mental motivation, and not to make light of her mental struggles in her general health, but just as far as the fight is concerned, if she's struggling to just get up for this fight and she has to come up with this sort of thing, something we haven't heard from her before, as far as just like the Diaz brothers invent beefs and whatnot, she's never been that type. She's always been the exact opposite. This makes me think something is going wrong as far as her motivation is concerned, and any doubt means that Weili Zhang should win this fight. All right, so now let's move on to the main event, Kamaru Usman and Jorge Masvidal. I don't think we need to take a whole lot of time with this, because I'd say I got Usman by murder, death, kill. This is going to be an even more dominant version of what we saw on Fight Island. Matt, who you got?
Agreed. I don't know why we're getting this rematch. Like, on the note, I think it was either Ben that made the note or Jay made the note of like instant rematches. Like, why the hell why is Masvidal getting this instant rematch for a title?
Florida man.
I get it. I get why, but like, talk about a guy that's like destroyed his reputation in the meantime, and getting the shot as well. Like, it makes no sense to me. I don't really care for this main event. I'm really excited for the two other title fights on this card. And I'm gonna buy it for those reasons, but this main event does nothing for me. You could have put anyone else. Yeah, Gilbert Burns rematch would have been far more interesting to me than a fucking Jorge Masvidal
like
rematch.
A Colby Covington rematch makes a lot more
Why
sense.
why don't we have that?
Yeah.
Why?
A whole lot more sense. For me to ever defend Colby Covington anyway, you know something is really wrong.
Yeah.
Jay, who you got?
I am looking more forward to a different rematch in the card, and that's Chris Weidman versus Uriah Hall, than I am to this bizarrely match made. It's not a money fight anymore. And that's the problem. There's no rub. There's no mystery. There wasn't a moment of, ooh, what's going to happen? Masvidal won the first round. He did some damage on the feet. What did he bloody his nose? Okay, whatever. And what happened the rest of the fight? I believe it was like 49-45 type of dominance or something along those lines. It wasn't fun. And it wasn't the kind of thing that you look at and go, boy, I wonder what would happen if they did this again. Like when Harry Hansucker made its UFC debut on short notice and got clocked by a better striker across the board. They could have done this at full camp and the same thing would have happened. They could have done this with short notice, anything like that. That's what's going to happen in this situation. Jorge Masvidal has not shored up his game to stop Kamaru Usman's takedowns. Just not going to happen. That's not his game. He's a sprawl and brawler in some regard, the old style, the Robbie Lawler style, but he also wants to stick his long strikes out in your face. Kamaru Usman don't play. He's not dumb. He brawled. He had a moment of weakness when he brawled with Gilbert Burns, and if he does that, Masvidal has a chance. But that's not going to happen. Usman's too smart. It'd be crazy to do anything besides do what he did the last time, because that'll work again, and that's what's going to happen.
All right, Ben, to wrap this up, who you got?
The odds on this one are about the same as Shevchenko versus Andrade, but notably, all four of us, regardless of who we picked, seem to acknowledge that Andrade had some things that she could do that would make Shevchenko uncomfortable and possibly like force the fight to look a certain way. That isn't the case here. Like, Masvidal's avenues to victory all involve Usman making a mistake or doing something dumb. I'm not picking that to happen, so give me Usman by death.
Yeah, sounds like a plan. So
last question, show of hands. Does Usman get the finish?
Yes.
He gets finished.
Yeah, the way his boxing has improved under Trevor Whitman, and it was only like 2 camps that he's done with him. I think this will be the second full camp, and he did a partial camp with him ahead of the first fight. Yeah, his striking is going to look even better. He's stronger. He's a better wrestler. Like there's too many avenues for him to get a finish.
I wouldn't have picked it just because Masvidal is so hard to finish, but the way Usman was just crushing Gilbert Burns with his jab, he literally didn't have that jab a year and a half ago. Yeah. Like,
yeah, this is going to be a slaughterhouse.
I think so too. By a late maybe, but yeah, buckle up, Buttercup.
Maybe a club and sub type thing.
Yeah, something like that. All right, so this is going to do it for this edition on Unleashed. Big thanks to Matt Hunter for stepping off the platform of MCR to join us here on the Walkout Network. Shout out to Ben and Jay for holding it down every week. Like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. So stay beautiful, stay positive. I can't think of anything else to say, but just stay sexy.
Stay dead.
I'll see you when I see you. Peace.